Welcome, friends, to another special episode of Cuppa Joe. Today, joining me is Dennis McGeehan, author, blogger, speaker, podcaster, and member of the Catholic Writers Guild. But wait, there's more. He's a retired judo expert, having practiced judo for over 40 years. Today, we're going to talk to Dennis primarily about St. Joseph and his book. So welcome to our little humble carpenter shop, Dennis. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you, John. It's really great to be here.
So Dennis, as we like to ask all of our guests, how do you like your coffee? And how do you think St. Joseph would like his coffee?
Well, sometimes when I was feeling like a smart aleck, people would ask me, like, how do I like my coffee?
Yeah.
I'd reply, just the way God created it, black, the way he wants it to be drank.
Very good. And how do you think St. Joseph would drink his coffee?
Joseph, in my mind, is a straightforward, simple man, and he would definitely drink his black.
I think you're right. Yeah, he was a pretty simple guy, not very complicated. So, well, very good. So, Dennis, tell us a little bit about yourself and how did you come to write this wonderful book?
I go back to when I was 5 years old. It may sound strange, but it's the truth. I grew up, back then they called them broken families. Father was a really bad alcoholic, lots of bad memories. And there was one day, there was a really bad fight. And I ran out of the living room and down the hall to my mother's bedroom. My mother and father never slept together that I recall, that I can remember. They always had separate rooms. And my mother, who was Episcopalian, had a picture of Mary on her bedroom wall. And I ran to her room and I knelt down on the floor in front of that picture of Mary. And I begged her help. Stop the fight. I was scared. Things were bad. And while I was there, kneeling like that, I could feel like somebody was draping a blanket over my shoulders and my back. It felt warm. I could feel the weight of it. And I felt a sense of calm. It just came all over me. And right then and there, I promised myself that if I ever got married, if I ever had children, that my wife and my kids would not put up with what I was living through, that I would be the best husband and father that I could be. So now we can fast forward about 22 years, and I'm in college. And during my teenage years, I'd fallen away from going to church, like many people that age. And first weekend of school, classes hadn't started yet. I was at the Altoona campus of Penn State University, and they have a big pond in the middle of their campus. And there's park benches all around the pond. And it was about 4:30 in the afternoon, and I was stretched out on one of those benches. It was a gorgeous day. I was half asleep. And this kid that I had just met the day before comes up and literally kicks the bottom of my feet, startles me, wakes me up. I'm like, what the heck? And he looks at me and says, come on, we're going to church. And I said, no, we're not. He says, yeah, you're going to church. Come with me. So they had a Catholic evening service there at the campus. And I went there. And that's where I met the girl who would become my wife. Now, it took a while for us to get married. We were together for years. We broke up for years. Then we got back together. And at the age of 28 years old, I was married. And one day we were out. Well, it came to me, that promise I made to myself. My wife and my kids are going to have the best husband and father there can be. And I thought to myself, how do I do that? I ain't got a clue. Because my father was a terrible one. So one day while we were out shopping, I found this book called The Life and Glories of St. Joseph by Edward Healy Thompson. And anybody who is a fan of St. Joseph, you have to read that book.
Now,
It's a
Dennis,
hard read.
where were you shopping, Dennis? Because that book is not easy to find. I can't imagine you found it at Walmart or somewhere.
It was at a Catholic bookstore, a Catholic gift shop at the time.
Wow.
It is available. That book is still available online. Uh, 10 publications, I think, have the copyright for it right now. So you can get it online quite easily.
It's a great book.
I started to read that book, and the first 5 times I picked it up to read it, I got maybe 50 pages into it, and it beat me. I gave up. I didn't understand a thing I was reading. Well, as you said earlier, I studied and I taught judo. And at that time, I happened to be have a judo class in the basement of our church. And so I could get in and out of the church. I had the key. And also at that time, my wife and I were watching EWTN. And for some reason, they seemed to be having a lot of guests come on the show talking about the topic of Eucharistic adoration. Like 5, 6 times in a matter of several weeks, they had somebody there talking about Eucharistic adoration in some way, shape, or form. I think God was hitting me in the head with a 2x4, because then I realized I got the key to the church. Wonder if Father would let me keep the church open after class so people could come and spend time in front of the tabernacle with Jesus. And so I approached Father, and he gave us the green light. So after class, I would go upstairs and I would open up the church. And we had put a thing in the bulletin about it, and people started coming for Eucharistic adoration. Not many at all. It was very sparsely attended, unfortunately. And I was there, and genuflect, get into the pew, name of the Father, Son, Holy Spirit, amen, say my prayers, Our Father, Hail Mary, etc. Then tried to concentrate on Jesus. And what I hear in my head is, I got to fix that leak in the bathroom when I get home. I need to work on Sean's bicycle. The chain keeps slipping. My to-do list just crashed in on me. So then I remembered what they said on EWTN. Bring a good book with you to Eucharistic adoration to help you concentrate on God. So I grabbed my Life and Glories of St. Joseph book and took that to Eucharistic adoration with me. And there in front of the tabernacle, I never read more than 10 pages in an hour. And there were some nights where I read 1 or 2 pages. But I began to understand things about St. Joseph I had never heard in my life. And I'm a cradle Catholic. My mother was Episcopalian, but she sent me to Catholic elementary school. I had 8 years of Catholic elementary school. And what I was reading in this book was totally new to me. I was blown away. Well, around that time, I was trying to work as a freelance writer. I like to write. And I got connected with a company that hired freelancers to compose 5 short, might call them tweets today, pretending you were one of the saints. So I would write 5 tweets as if I was St. Patrick, or 5 tweets as if I was St. Basil or something. And I was studying St. Joseph at the time. And I asked the people, could I do St. Joseph? And I don't understand why. But up to this point, they had been very cooperative, friendly with any suggestion. But they froze at the suggestion of St. Joseph. It's like they were petrified. Somebody would write as if they were St. Joseph. And I explained to them that it's not my thoughts, it's not my imagination. It's what I'm learning from this book, which is a Catholic classic. And that book basically gives you the thoughts of the early church fathers. St. John Chrysostom, St. Ambrose, et cetera, et cetera. So the thoughts in that book are orthodox. They're solid, but they didn't want to hear anything about it. And then that company underwent a reorganization of some type, and they let go of a bunch of the writers, and I was one of them. I was told that they didn't need my services anymore, and that no big deal. I mean, it wasn't like I was supporting my family on the money I made from that job. But then after that, I'm thinking to myself, instead of these tweets, what if Joseph and Mary had kept a diary while all the stuff that was going on in their lives was happening? What would that look like? So I took the book, The Life and Glories of St. Joseph, which is my primary source. And then I took a few other books that I have on St. Joseph. And I started to write as if I was Joseph, as if I was Mary, making diary entries. Starting from the time when Joseph was a child with his father, and Mary when she was a child, age 3, as she was about to go and live in the temple. And I just kept going chronologically down up until the death of Joseph. And that's how the book came about. So it was my hope in writing the book that other men would read it and understand that St. Joseph is a role model that every man in the world needs to emulate.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Well, I love how your book story came about. And here in a moment, I'd like to ask you what's your favorite diary day entry. But before I do, I didn't get my technology to work on time when you were talking, but I found a picture on your blog of your lovely family here. And if my math is right, I counted only 7 sons, but I read on your blog that you have 9 children. Is that correct?
That's correct. That picture is from the church, well, not bulletin, but yearbook. At the time that was taken, my daughter was married. I have 1 daughter and 7 sons. Wow. And she and her husband got their own picture taken. So it's, me and my wife, just 7 boys. Then there's a separate picture of Sabrina with her husband, Matthew. So that makes 8. So where's the 9th? Well, my wife was pregnant after Devin is our youngest, and Sue became pregnant after Devin, but she lost a child before she was born. So we have a daughter who returned to God, and we call her Kateri.
Kateri.
We've named her Kateri.
Well, I have this theory, which I'll find out after I die if it's true, but I have this theory that when someone shares that story of a child who has gone on before them, like in miscarriage, if the other person, if they've also had that, if those 2 kids are up in heaven playing and kind of laughing at us. So my theory is that Kateri, your Kateri, and our Anna Victoria are right now just kind of giggling and laughing and saying, they don't get it. They just don't really get it. We're having so much fun up here. So we also lost my wife and I, our second child. She died early. We named her Anna Victoria. So it sounds like you have a good prayer warrior already in heaven rooting you on.
I hope so, because I could surely use it.
Let me come back to your book, The Diaries of Joseph and Mary. And Dennis, of all the entries, which is your personal favorite?
I'd have to say the entry where Jesus is born. Joseph's entry and Mary's entry for the birth of Jesus.
Well, could I, on behalf of our audience, could I ask you to turn to that entry and with your own words, read that diary entry from as if you were speaking like Joseph?
I would be very grateful to do that, yes.
And I'll put here on the screen an image of St. Joseph reading your diary. So
He is born. Mary has fallen asleep. The child is in her arms, nursing contentedly. All is calm now, and the stars are shining brighter than I've ever seen them shine before. I don't know how Mary can sleep. My mind is racing. My very soul is pulsing, and all the fear and worry are gone. There were no rooms available and the innkeepers were impatient, harsh even. They see in the census a gold mine for themselves. One offered us to use a stable, and he charged a dear price for it. I was heartbroken, but I could do no more for Mary and the child. Mary's time came, and she delivered the child. And what I beheld, I will never forget. The cave was alight with shining beams, and the night was filled with their music such as I had never heard before. Angels from God, they surrounded the child and Mary, and I stood in the glow of their radiance. And all I could feel was profound love and joy. A fragrance of sweet flowers filled the cave where the animals had been. Mary seemed to be in ecstasy, her face reflecting the light emanating from the celestial guardians. After a time, the angels seemed to withdraw just a bit. They hovered above and behind her, but the front of the cave they left open. Shepherds from the field came, very hesitantly. The fear on their faces was evident. But one of the angels bade them come closer and fear not. Indeed, he proclaimed to the shepherds, rejoice. They brought gifts such as they had, food and wine for Mary and me, blankets for the child, and wood for a fire. I took the wood and have built a fire outside the stable to provide warmth, light, and protection from the night predators. I have not slept for 3 days, but I am just beginning to feel tired. Indeed, I have never felt so alive in my life. My eyes are starting to grow heavy as I write this. I have never known such peace. Who is this child that angels and shepherds adore? Who am I to be trusted with his care? Joseph.